Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and today is the first day of our Alchemy of Reiki series. I am so excited to share with you. If you don't know what this is about, just go back to the previous episode. I give a really quick snippet about this series that I will be conducting. So before we begin and get into the first conversation, I just want to say thank you, a deep bow of gratitude to each energetic alchemist that agreed to come and share their stories with us in hopes that these stories will inspire and maybe even give you some ideas about your own personal work in exploration. So to kick off the series, we have a beautiful, beautiful soul named Melinda. And Melinda and I have an in-depth conversation about her practice. But what's very interesting is you will hear how what we may categorize as spiritual practices, or even some of the things that we learned through the expressions of Reiki, were really woven through her story, through her life. So I would love to hear what you think about that and how it mirrors to you the way that this work has been really impressed upon your life experience as well. So I want to tell you a little bit about Melinda. She loves to connect students to the power and radiance of their own artistic and physical potential, both in the ground and in the air. She teaches aerial acrobat, and she also teaches belly dance. And when you're done listening to this episode, I highly recommend clicking on the links to get in connection with her, but also to view her work because it's phenomenal. So she loves conjuring magic and creating supportive community through dance and circus arts. She's taught and performed at beautiful venues around the world, including in Singapore, Paris, Greece, the Berkshires, and St. Louis, just to name a few. And she grew up performing as a child in Greece and in the United States as a professional belly dancer and circus artist. And again, her story is so very interesting, and I hope that you enjoy all that she shares. She is the co-founder and director of Moody Street Circus, her family-run studio, and she holds a Ph.D. in medieval French literature from the University of Pennsylvania. Now, what you will find, again, is that there are so many juicy nuggets woven throughout Melinda's story and what she shares that will support you in your path, maybe even your understanding of how you are working with energy, intentionality. I mean, she said a few things that really hit home. Just to give you a preview, at one point she asked herself in her life, is worry just me? Is worry just who I am? And I thought that was so powerful. And of course, it made me think of the Gokai and Reiki, just for today, be free from worry. She also shares with us how she came to a place of understanding that she could benefit from co-creating, especially as it came to her spiritual practices. And she also is going to share with you some of the rituals and practices that she infuses into her daily life and how these little tricks may support you as well. So that is all for now. Be sure to, after the episode, click on the links down in the show description to connect with Melinda. Melinda, I thank you so much for sharing these beautiful insights with us, and I will see you all on the other side. Okay, everyone, welcome to Reiki Radio. We are here today with the beautiful, energetic alchemist, Melinda. Melinda, first, and I know you know this, but I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. This is a dream.
Yeah, no, for me, I feel so honored to be able to have these conversations, this series that you are opening up for all of us, because a lot of people who listen, practitioners who listen, will get to have a very clear picture of how this work works in very practical ways, but also hear behind the curtain, like, who are the healers, right? Who are we beyond that title and that expression? So I just want to start out first. I do want to mention that you are a phenomenal teacher and you do have Moody Street Circus. You teach belly dance and aerial acrobats. Is that what we call it?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you do so many amazing things that have inspired me in terms of body connection. But I want to start out by asking you about your path with energy work and meditation. How did that start for you?
Well, let's go back to, I guess, being a child and traveling on airplanes alone. When I was very young, I went back and forth between my parents, who were amicably separated from when I was very little. And I would be on the airplane going from like California to Greece and making, navigating that alone as a child. And when I was up in the air on the airplane, I would have this feeling come over me of coming into myself and having a conversation with myself about that I would be okay and that I would meet myself back here on a plane. I would be meeting myself back here in 6 months, because I would go 6 months, 6 months, back and forth and back and forth. And I do not know how this came to me, but I would be on the plane after having parted from one parent, anticipating going to the next, going between two very different places. And I would have been crying, or, it's tumultuous to do that kind of journey as a child. And at some point, the tears I would just allow them, and then this feeling would come when I would be sitting there, and it would almost like a conversation with my higher self or something as I look back. But then I don't know. I do not know what it was, but I would be reassured in this kind of bigger picture way that I would be okay, and that I'll, let's make a date. I'll see you here again, In a way, I think that was a little bit of a micro meditation that that spontaneously arose, that was nourishing to me. And so while I didn't practice a formal meditation, those kinds of feelings and conversations with myself would arise to assist me, in those times, in difficulty and in transition. And then moving ahead, I've been always attracted to certain places that generated feelings of peace in me. And just the walks around the Acropolis where my mom lives, or anywhere really, walking, and feeling this peace within myself. And then just feeling some places were not as peaceful, and gravitating towards the ones that were. So I had a sort of a sense, without again naming anything, I just gravitated toward that. And I remember my dad once took me to a Quaker meeting. He was attending them for a while, and I was in college. And I just remember it was a beautiful, I was raised as a hippie child, of free to be you and me. So I wasn't organized in organized religion in any way. But this Quaker meeting was just people gathering and sitting, and there was a fire, and then bringing peace into themselves. And then anybody could speak about anything that arose in them in this meeting. And I loved it. I loved it. And I didn't love it so much that I kept going all the time, but I was like, this is, this is fantastic. And those kinds of experiences just built over time, and I could start to recognize and really choose to go into places like that. And then finally, little by little over time, started my own real dedicated practice probably after I had a child, actually, and was on another, and kind of chose the path very consciously.
Yes. I actually wanted to ask you about that very specifically, but it's interesting just listening to this part of your life. And I heard you on another podcast before, so I heard a little bit of your background. And with your coming into relationship with yourself at such an early age, having those conversations, internalizing, but it seems like you had to adapt, even like this mechanism to learn how to adapt to so many different environments. Because what I heard you share before is in all of this, you also changed schools a lot, you moved a lot. So it wasn't just going back and forth between California and Greece. There was a lot of movement even within all of that. So yeah, it's really interesting to consider your level of observation and self-awareness, even when you talk about looking for those spaces of peace. So with that in mind, what was that like for you? Like really having to learn how to be adaptive to different spaces and trying to find your peace within every space you went into.
Yeah. It was a challenge, but it was something that it was like a practice in itself. It was
Right.
something I knew how to navigate just by doing it so many times. I did go attend 16 different elementary and junior high schools from, growing up, and in all different places, because my parents were artists and they moved around. And so I was, also moved around. And the good thing about school and is that it has kind of a similar kind of structure everywhere you go. The school, there's the building, there's the teachers, there's the kids, you have books, you have notebooks. So, there's something that was familiar in a way that actually was stabilizing in that way, because I would like, okay, I know, how this is probably going to work. I also knew that every teacher wasn't going to be as wonderful and accommodating to my strange upbringing, or not strange, but kind of unconventional upbringing. And I think I was really tuned into my whatever environment I was entering, or whatever change I would just sort of visualize how it was going to go, probably, and create strategies for myself of, I would always have my notebooks, always sort of get the lay of the land and see what the other kids were, what they were wearing and doing and how they were being, and how this teacher, I think I actually, I learned how to sense the whole environment, so that as a protection for myself. And so I really had to be tuned into kind of everybody all the time, about and sort of yeah, that's really interesting. I just was having some insights about why I'm really great at like tracking other people's energy and but it was a strategy so that I could, I always knew I could create good relationships wherever I went. I always had faith in my own ability to sort of see what the other people's priorities were, and what was supposed to happen, and what would be helpful, and how could I bring, myself into relationship with others in a peaceful and productive way. And there was just something that was innate in me, and to do that. So I did do that. I do, as I look back, see that I probably, I was having my own little sufferings, of course. I would, for example, go to Greece and, the first day of the new school, and my mom has like painted a butterfly on my book bag, and we've got my clothes ready, and there's always that. And I would say, Mom, you can't wear that, boa. Don't wear your nightclub outfits, be normal. Like, can you please wear beige, like be quiet. Like if she was going to go with me. And I remember, I would just, the first day of school in Greece, I just was so nervous, and I just threw up all over my book bag, in the morning. And then I just kept throwing up, and just nerves and stomach. But I wanted to, I knew that I could push through it. Like I would never, it wasn't even an option, and didn't even cross my mind to give up, to
Yeah.
say, oh no, I'm not going to do this. And partly my mom is very helpful with that, and my whole the family ethos is kind of, well, we can do this. We're gonna do this. It's, and not like punishing, you're gonna do this, never, but like, this is the way it is. We're gonna do this. We can do it. And these are beautiful. There's beautiful people everywhere, and we're gonna find the ones who are gonna be helpful and love us. And we're gonna
Well,
love them.
we have to make sure to give a little context. It's interesting
Oh,
thinking about you wanting to, not even wanting to, I would say, but just naturally being so observant and having heightened awareness about your environments and how you could adapt into these environments again to facilitate this experience of peacefulness for yourself. And then you paint this picture of your mother, who sounds like she's not trying to adapt to anyone's anything. She just shows up just like, here I am, right? So could you give us a little background about what type of work your mom was doing, and then also how that played a role in your life and what you learned through that experience?
mhm. All right. Well, my mom is a force, yes, of nature.
Mhm.
She's a very, very, very powerful energy. She is a belly dancer. She who moved to Greece from America, never having left the country before, when she was 33, and unmarried, unmarried. I mean, she she could have been married. She was married many times, but she had two young daughters at the time, me and my sister, half sister Piper, who's 7 years older than I. And so she her story is long and incredible, but she got the inspiration to travel to Greece. She got the funding to do it in the 70s. She on the way visited through Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. She ended in Greece, and absolutely just fell in love with the country and the energy of the Acropolis, and the buoyancy of the people. She had already come to know Greeks in America at the tavernas where she belly danced in San Francisco, California. And she had already kind of gotten used to the culture through the dancing, the Greek folk dances, which she learned when I was a child. And she taught me already how to Greek folk dance before I ever went to Greece. And so she made a life for herself in Greece, just like that. She's like, I'm going to stay here. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay here. And I have letters that I collected from that she wrote my sister, who was 14 at the time, and she left me and her. My dad actually and his girlfriend at the time came to take care of us for a bit. It's the family story is, I won't even go into our family tree. It's so complicated, but everybody's helping each other. Okay, do what they want to do, basically. And so my mom she just figured out how to stay in Greece, how to find work in the tourist tavernas of Plaka, how to, she just sheer will and determination. And she made it happen for herself and for us. And she brought us over as soon as she could. But she was meanwhile writing my 14-year-old sister, okay, Piper, here's what you have to do. Please contact so and so in Las Vegas to set up a seminar for me, in next year and play. So my sister actually was, doing a lot to keep things stable back here as my mom went off to do her thing. But one of the things that my mom has always prided herself on as a mother is, as she puts it, and one might say this is potentially manipulative, but it's also wonderful, is that, she would say, she wanted us to feel empowered in our own, that we could do all of these things. We could do it. She believed in us. And yes, it was for the benefit of our little family unit.
Yes.
And, she would say, even about chores, if I protested that she wanted me to wash the floors or vacuum or something, she goes, "But Melinda, I'm not making you do this. I'm letting you do this. This is a wonderful thing, that you're doing." And I would be like,
it's all perspective.
Okay. Yeah, it's all. She's a queen of that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that explains, but like she just, yeah.
But
And
how
she's
did
still,
that merge
yeah.
in with you in dance? Like, how did you become a
So
dancer
then
yourself?
I was already, from when I was a little child, baby, she was already dancing and in tavernas in San Francisco and on television, KQED, and with this Jamila Salimpour's troupe and doing Renaissance fairs. And I would be brought along. I literally was brought along to everything that she did. When I first came home from the hospital, there was no crib. I mean, when I'm talking about when I was born, there was no crib. There was my mom's makeup drawer with all of her, belly dance stuff in it. And she just made a little crib for me in the makeup drawer and just left it pulled out. She didn't close me in, but that was my crib. And I was just brought along into the performing life that she was already doing, just like a nomad might strap their little baby to their chest and walk. I mean, that's just what happened. There was no separation of like, I'm doing this and you're doing that. She was doing that, and so I was doing that. And so
Right.
when I first performed, I was 2 years old, and I was at the nightclub because there was no babysitter. We'd be in the dressing room where I learned to count on her tips. And she pinned a little costume to my diapers one night, and I went out on stage. And this is a family friendly kind of cultural experience where I was. I don't want anybody to think this was like exploitative and
Right.
weird. This was a family friendly. There were kids with their families also there. And I just mimicked what I had already always seen her do with the band, and like people went crazy, money was thrown all over, it was a celebration. So I was 2, and that was my big debut. And then when I was 7 in Greece, and my mom had moved to Greece, again, it was a question of, well, would you like to stay at home and alone at night while I go to do this gig, or maybe you want to come on stage with me tonight and like balance this tray of candles and just, be with me, and then say hi to the singers and have fun and, be there. And I would be like, duh, like I'm going to, I don't want to stay home alone. Let me go do this thing and be part of her adventure. But it wasn't just her adventure, it was my adventure, and I loved it. But I did have it was a learning experience, and it was something I had to get used to, my mom's ideas. And then she would always say, why not just try? Just try. You don't have to be perfect. Just try. Just see what this is like. And then if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. And I would be like, okay, I'll try. Okay, I'll try. And so I tried many, many things. And so one of the things that I tried, I remember, is yes, I put part of the belly dance show that she did was balancing a sword on her head, and I balanced a tray of candles on my head. And so in the context of her show for 600 tourists from around the world, I would come out with my little tray and I would present it and I would put it on my head and I would dance. And at the end of that show, people would leap to the stage and Russians would bring me Russian nesting dolls and put it on my tray, and people would bring me gifts from, uh, again, this was in the 70s before iPhones and anything. People were fully present and they traveled with little tokens of their country. And they were all hoping to sort of look at each other and see a new culture. And they weren't afraid, and they were there to exchange in this way. And got to be this, I got to be a little goddess, you know, getting these offerings, and just, it was quite an experience as a kid. And then just to top off this vision for you, where I would dance every night, one of the places was a rooftop taverna, and just above in the distance was the Parthenon, the Temple
Wow.
of Athena, would be literally lit up because they would do a sound and light show. So it would be like purple, and then there'd be the moon and the stars, and I'd be on the stage with my mom balancing the tray of candles. And they were magic times. And yeah, so that's how that happened. And then my skill set kind of developed naturally. But again, my mom, it wasn't like dance moms where it's like, you done it perfect. You know, my mom is always like, you just be how you are. It's perfect. Just come
Yeah.
on, be. And in fact, the less perfect you are, the more you're going to be relatable to everybody else. In fact, nobody wants to see a polished child, you know, well, some kind of perfect thing that's not really
Right.
natural to them. Be yourself, and just that's enough. And
That
that's
is
enough.
such a beautiful thing, Melinda, to think again, like going back to, you know, I guess these different layers of what you were exposed to, and I guess what would have really fed into your character, because there's that part again that learned to be very observant, how to maintain peace, which, you know, at a very young age, I mean, that's I think a powerful thing to even come into consideration with, like how that would even carry with us throughout life. But then on the other hand, you have this mom with this bold energy that's like, just be you, like adapt to what? Like just be you. So it's a beautiful contrast. And I have to ask, with this, and I mean, obviously you have developed your dance beautifully, and we'll share links in the show description because you have got to check out Melinda's work. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. But what did you learn through dance? How did dance, or has it become, I shouldn't assume, but has it become part of your spiritual practice? And what did you learn about you, or what are you still learning about you through the process of dance?
Hmm. Yeah, I realize now that it is my spiritual practice and always has been, but more consciously now, in a lot of ways. Like the way I've always felt drawn to dance is just is a natural expression of myself. I've always, as I told you just now, my mom was like, just be yourself. And she wasn't like, wait, no, let's adjust your elbow position, you know, like none of that. It's the feeling from inside, hearing the music, translating it through the body, in the way that feels good, and that keeps in, there's a consideration for the all of who is around you, of the larger context. So there's a feeling of, I mean, I think this is true for any performing artist, maybe also, just this sort of sense of you are, it's a ceremony. And there's a certain vibration of in performance where you are just so conscious and aware of being kind of a magician,
Mhm.
um, that and you have to fully be in it. You have to fully be in it and not worried, about anything. And it's as we're talking, I realize that my very first thing that brought me into my mom's dance as was this tray of candle balance that I did and that I still do. And the way that she taught me and that I even do for myself now is that there is a ritual about it. You don't just go put something on your head and just start to go fast. It's the same for any time that you're going to step into the kind of, I say, sacred field of movement of presenting the dance. Or yes, before I put that tray on my head and do the thing, there's almost a consecration of the experience and an acknowledgement of what is happening now. So there is a lot of ritual feeling in the whole thing. So here is the candle. There are lit candles on the tray. There is the tray. You sit or stand and you center. You breathe. This allows everyone else who might be watching and witnessing to be in that with you, to stillness. You're guiding that presence. Then there is acknowledgement for the prop or the, whatever the thing that you're doing. And the tray lifts and I lift the tray and I, here it is, taking the time to set up the beauty and the magic of the experience. This is true for whether there's a tray or not a tray. So, and then lifting it and then bringing it down. And just every single moment is just slow and kind of sacred, for lack of a better word. And I've always felt that about dance and always seen how the dancer has the power in certain contexts to create an energy field for the whole audience. To you're taking everybody on a journey, and your energy, like same in the circus, which is another story we didn't talk about yet, but you're circus ring and there's 1,600 people, and you're sort of, any circus performer is aware of the whole ring of people. Everybody is there and everybody is with you. And it's one of the wonderful things about learning how to be comfortable with performing in front of people, is that you are not just you, but you are greater than yourself, and you are also generating energy for everybody to feel what you're feeling or experience something within themselves. So I've went on several tangents, but yeah, I would say
no,
that.
but I have so many questions now.
Yeah.
Okay, so because of even what you just shared, Melinda, it reminds me a lot of what we talk about all the time in the Alchemy Circle, right? Being in your authority, the importance of managing your own energy, and then that co-resonance that we have. Also, the potential of adapting to others rather than managing, and you being like the more prominent energy, right? Because a lot of people who are empathic, they have that challenge of adapting to everyone else's energy instead of having the ability to maintain their own. Oh, I think you may have froze a little bit. Oh, there you are. So how empaths may adapt to other energy and then have a hard time maintaining their own. But it sounds like through your performance, you were very much practicing that, very much your awareness of your authority, how your energy would be very impactful to those that you are one with. There's so many layers of what we practice in, Reiki energy healing that is coming through, and what you're sharing is basically the point. So I have to ask you this. Did you ever have times where you really had to practice that sturdiness in your awareness, almost kind of tuning out what was going on around you, if you had people in the audience that were disruptive or anything like that?
Yes. I mean, my practice in on stages was so strong.
Mm.
It had been so like I guess I just always felt powerful. I always felt like I could, in that setting, bring everybody back to the high, or raise the level of the vibration, no matter what. Like, I had, there may have been strategies here and there. Nothing ever threw me in that setting, and weird people are people. I mean, they're, you do this is silly things and this and that. I mean, even in the modern age, not the ancient history, or iPhones filming you while you're doing what you feel is a very, what you're channeling something, and it just feels very strange. But you cannot, this never affects me on stage.
Okay, so we just have a little bit of a glitch, no problem. So, okay, so you were never really shaken by anyone who was in the audience. You were always able to maintain that level of presence and keeping the energy lifted for a majority.
Yes. And absolutely, that's the role and the function and the power of the symbol of the performer, in any situation, really. That's what you got to go with. And having kind of improvisational skills, even from just, I've witnessed performers my whole life growing up, from in the circus, and in any situation, you can see that people who get freaked out and react against, little people in the audience, or who are being irritating or whatever, that just throws everything off, and it doesn't serve them ever in that context. And that the people who are able to be, like, I would say, almost the having the improvisational skills, the clown skills of taking that energy and going somewhere else with it, and acknowledging that that's happening, but showing that that doesn't bother you at all. Like, that's, and maybe even a little sense of fun, and poking back to them, and in their, just, but with humor, humor. You have to have a sense of humor. You have to maintain your full presence, and you got to be able to let things go, so that you can, serve the entire audience.
It's amazing. No, I'm just fascinated by so much of, again, what you're sharing, the experience of a performer, how it mirrors so much of the work that we do. And this is why I really wanted to have these conversations, so that people don't attach too much to limiting their practice to looking like just one particular thing, but how it literally can express out in so many ways. And even we can learn these beautiful practices through different life experiences. So I have to ask you now, I mean, if we fast forward a little bit, and we're going to go back at some point because I still have questions, but if we fast forward a little bit, so now you are very connected to your spiritual expression, your own expression through dance. And again, you facilitate, teaching and performing. But now you also, in your practice, I know that you meditate and do energy work and all of these things. So I wanted to ask, what attracted you to what you have been practicing, I'll say more recently? How did you come into energy work and meditation as, the way that we identify them outside of how you've already been expressing them?
Yeah. I think it was a feeling. It was a feeling, that led me down a path to find out more. So something I was meditating a long time before I kind of, and then how I did it and shifted. So I was kind of meditating like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do this because I know it's good for me. This was and but I was like, it felt a little bit like I was clinging, to this thing that I was like, if I got to do this, I got to do this. Um, I knew I had to do this, and I don't know. I knew I trusted that I had to do it, but anyway, how it felt has shifted um, a lot since working with you and the Alchemy Circle and shifting in different ways. But even before that, I always had this feeling of, I always knew I was a worrier, as I've described before. I'd get to all of that, changing schools and changing countries. I did it beautifully. I had lots of skills and to manage my energy and myself. And I always, especially I had dance and humor and great parents um, but I had this feeling that there was worry etched in my bones. I was just, I think part of the way that I coped was to strategize, to forward plan constantly, to think about what could go wrong, how could I fix it in advance, everything. How was I going to take care of myself, and how was I going to also take care of everybody else and make it smooth? And so I think that was from childhood. I just was like managing so much and feeling like it was all on me to do that, and feeling very like I could really find peace, and I with here and there, and I was dancing, and that would definitely, that's very transformative of energy. I was very aware of that. And um but I still had this feeling like there is something in me that just feels etched in my bones, worry. And I just feel like maybe I was just asking the question, maybe is this just me, or could something happen and transform this? Like, is this just part of who I am? And I kind of didn't think so, but I wasn't sure. And all I knew is that I needed to stay open to new ideas that were coming in about getting help, actually, from others, getting help. I even made a list a few years ago. I'm like, these are the ways that I'm going to ask for help. I don't have to do it all by myself. What?
Imagine
So,
that.
so I'm like, oh, these are the ways that I have helped myself, because I think I did operate from, we always did as family. We were doing a lot by ourselves, and we were really scrambling and trying to figure things out, and didn't have resources to, whatever it might be. But anyway, all the ways I would just sort of start to look, I think I need to get some, I would benefit from co-creating somewhere with somebody else. And so I remember first I was getting body work, because for me to remain able to do everything that I do physically, teaching wise, on aerial apparatus and dance, I really wanted to stay in my balanced body as much as I could. So I have a wonderful body worker who works on fascia, and it's not a feel good massage in the moment, but it's something that definitely has effects and has helped me a lot. And she actually recommended, like, she was having a friend of hers who's a psychic come to do classes at her house, and she was inviting some people to go, just, and I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. I'd like to see what that's about. I'd kind of been in resistance to psychics before, and in terms of just like, well, I got my stuff together. I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. You know, I don't need to know the future. I'm good. I don't know. This is what my conception was at the time. I was wrong, very wrong. But anyway, um, so I started to go to these classes on with a small group, and it was starting to blow my mind. She would take us on these short little journeys, and I remember, you know, then we'd recount some of the stuff what came up for us. And I remember saying, well, I saw this and that, but it's just me. I just made that up. I just made that up. I don't know. That wasn't real. I just made that. And she would just get so mad at me because I was like, so, but I mean, that's what I just I starting to come into relationship with my own intuition and what really is imagination and the power of it and the energy of it and what it can teach us. And but I was just a newbie, and I really was like what? I just made that up, that I was, you know, there was a bench across the ocean and I was looking and but anyway, I was just, that was my little first steps. And I had a session with her one-on-one. I had the opportunity, and I she said, you know, you need to drop into your heart. You're good from the neck down. Your body is very grounded and very knows, it has great wisdom. Your head is not attached to your body. You gotta. And I was like, what is she talking about? But I knew she was right. But I'm like, I don't. Okay, what do I do? What do I do? And she's like, have you ever had a inner child healing? Or so I think that's what she said. And I was like, no, and anyway, she took me through a process. I was holding two crystals, one in each hand, and she's like, can you, this is you, this is your child self, this is you now. Can you bring them together and, you know, in loving, you know, and know that you'll be okay. And I don't remember if that's what she said exact, but I was like, I literally couldn't bring my hands together. I could not bring my hands together. Whatever she said, I did not feel it was possible to do. And they were not, and then she took me through visualizing myself as a child at different ages. And, you know, and was telling me about how sending love, and that what was healed now in me would be healed through all time. And whatever, I can't remember all that she said, but whatever was happening was profound, and I was dissolved in beautiful tears, but not like it was just, I just was open. I was cracked open. And at the end of our session, I was able to bring my hands together and with these two crystals. And this was before we were going to go and have a class with the rest of the group. So I just remember the feeling after this session, and I literally felt like I was floating, and I felt like my crown was blossoming, and there was an openness. There was just all I know is everything. There was no worry etched in me. I felt cleansed. I felt loved. I felt light. I felt the burdens were lifted, or you put them down. I'm even feeling it now. And I was like, this shit is real. I don't know. I got to get more of this. How am I going to do that? I don't know. And then at that point, I just was like, okay, I trust. Whatever this is, whatever this is, I got nothing to say against this. Like what? And I went home. I remember the next days, I literally just I like sort of watching myself. What was I doing? I just had this burst of energy. I was cleaning closets. I was getting rid of, which I now I understand is kind of a hallmark of like what happens after energy work sometimes. But I didn't know that. I was just like, wow, look at me go. I have all this energy to do all this stuff. I don't know. Anyway, after that, I was leaning in and curious about energy work in a whole new way that I've still been, I just the energy field of that experience and the shift that happened and how much it served me and my well-being um and so after that I just sought out more and more tools. I was listening to Reiki radio. I was, I went to another psychic Reiki practitioner and had another, and actually talked with her about she was on your show. That's how I found her, Lisa Campion. And I was talking to her about this worry etched on my bones feeling and stuff like that. And, just so I went from kind of, hey, I got this all, I can do all this by myself. I don't need any help. I'm good. I'm good. I got it all. I got it all too. Like, oh, maybe I'll try to get some help and see how that feels. Maybe I'll trust that maybe I'll put the resources into getting help for myself, into getting just, I was good, but like maybe I could be even better. Maybe I could feel amazing. Wouldn't that be cruel? Like, and let me invest in that. Let me invest in myself, not just everybody else. So I think
Beautiful.
that, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And it's funny for me to hear because I had no idea. I mean, you've been in the Alchemy Circle now for over a year, and it dawned on me like I had no idea how you even found me or what happened. But I have to ask you then too, like, because you have had all of these beautiful expressions, and whether it was through what you learned in dance, what you learned as a child who traveled a lot, what you've learned through these experiences with the psychic, all of it. What has it been like? And I can say this because for people listening, I mean, we've been working together for a while, so I see what Melinda does. Can you share with people listening who may go have these experiences but don't know what to do after the fact? So once you were brought into this curiosity, you had this amazing experience, then how do you sustain your practice? What does that look like now? How do you practice your practice? And what tools do you use, or what have you learned that stands out? And then how does that express in just everyday life?
Yeah, that's wonderful question. How to sustain. You first, I just love it. So I am always kind of nourishing that practice by listening to podcasts like yours, by having, I had already kind of a dedicated practice, but I did shift its focus. I just decided to further my education and I signed up for your intuitive mastery class, which I did online by myself. But that, so getting either signing up for an online course or finding a community online to bolster your practice, which is what the Alchemy Circle is all about, and actually meditating with people and having regular meetings set up definitely encourages your own self practice on the off times. And for me, it's fun too. I'm just always open now to like, I'm like, tarot class? Sure, that sounds great. Let me do that. And then I love to journal, and I love to I brought the fun tools into my dance teaching. So, I'll do all a class built around a tarot spread, or I'll do, one a shimmy session around an oracle card or something that just it's just creative and fun. I I think that the more you find ways that feel good in your body, and just try do them as just as we have to, drink our water every day, to sustain life, that I really find now that doing sitting for meditation is essential, um, to grounding and tuning in to how, to what's going on inside, and how that, because I feel I take big responsibility for my energy field. I come into contact with people and students, and I don't want to ever bring my crap, into the room. I've always taken big responsibility for that. And so for me, I love that. This is a way that just feels perfect to do that. I'm always open to new ideas. I remember we were doing a astrology class at one point, and I started to bring in, I started to learn more about the signs, even, go into more depth. And one actually was the beginning of this year. We were in Aquarius, which I know is your sign. And I was like learning, I went learning about the water bearer, and I was like, oh, let me bring this feeling and see how I can bring it into my dance class too. And I read somewhere about this ritual that just really stuck with me, and it's the water bowl ritual. So the Aquarius is the water bearer, and there to serve all, and pouring the water, and then the container. And the water bowl ritual is in the morning. There's a little bowl, and I pour water into my bowl, and that's kind of represents my life force energy. I'm going to be mindful for the day, and like I'll do whatever. I'll swish my finger, and every day is different. I'll paint some water on a rock. I'll put it on whatever weird thing I want to do. It's just I'll go with the flow on it. So there it is. And then I'll sit, so that brings me to my place where I will sit. So it's a thing that I'm like, I gotta feed my water bowl. It's a tiny little bowl, gotta feed my bowl, and then I sit. And then in the night, it's time to go empty the water bowl, which I've infused with as much presence as I can throughout the day. And I pour it into one of my plants. My plants are so happy in my life right now. So if I don't empty my bowl, my plants don't get that magical water. And so that's just a little example of like something that I do to nourish my practice. And that it's just like it's like a little game, but it's not a game. It's like, I mean, there have been times, very few, where I have forgotten to either fill or empty my bowl. And that usually shows me very clearly that something big happened that took me away from myself and my practice. And that's okay. That's okay. Because you have to be flexible, as you always say, firm and flexible. So sometimes it doesn't happen. So that, and like tons of, I have so many tools now. I can't even, I don't, they're fantastic. They just flow to me. I'm like a new tool every day, like I got them going on. But yes, having community to practice with, that's amazing. I love the Alchemy Circle members, and we have learned so much doing this work together, from each other. We've been mirrors for each other. We've been at this point, it's just like very powerful to be part of a group that has done so much layered work together,
Yeah.
and to have witnessed each other, really plumb the depths of shadow, and and just continuously also being vulnerable, being honest with ourselves and sharing with the group. And at this point, everybody recognizes that we're all we're all carrying this light and sharing this light, no matter if the crap's going on or not. And we have all, I think, learned how to come back into our peace with a lot of clarity. And I think we've all come a long way. I don't want to speak for the group, but I think that's, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
great,
No, I
and
agree. I mean, we all have come a long way. It's been amazing to watch. But I love, and I have to say this about you, as someone who has been able to personally observe you. I mean, the beauty of you is that your practice, it really does express through everything. I mean, it expresses through your words, the way you communicate. Again, it's really cool to hear the stories of how you take elements of, it could be meditation or tarot, and you infuse these things into your dance. And so how your practice really has become so unique to you. And I think that's a beautiful, I want to say maybe teacher for some of the people listening, is that your practice gets to be your own. And while we may come into our spaces of practice, whether to sit for meditation, to do Reiki, whatever it is that we're practicing very deliberately, but then how do you use all of that and let it infuse into the various areas of our lives? And you do that so beautifully. And that's part of the reason I was very excited to hear not all of your story. I mean, we don't have 5 days, but to hear a lot of your background so that people, again, can really witness how their practice may have even been expressing through their life that they just hadn't considered. So I have to ask you this, Melinda, because I'm going to ask all of the alchemists this question, but I also wanted to ask you about your daughter. We're going a little over. Is that okay?
yes,
Okay.
right,
So
yeah.
I want to ask you first, who is your practice for?
That's a beautiful question. My practice is for me, first and foremost. My practice is for me. My practice, yeah, is for me. And wherever I go, there's my practice spilling out and over, and hopefully, filling up the spaces, as, but not in a way that feels leaky and out of my control.
Mhm.
Not that I'm over controlling either. Let's, but I feel like it's absolutely changed. Uh, it's absolutely my priority to cultivate my life force energy and feel in my authority as much as possible all through the day and anywhere that I go and anything that I do. And of course, that's never perfect, but it's pretty, it gets easier to do. And if I'm at peace, then all the situations are going to be at peace. Like what? So
Yeah.
my practice is for me. I see that it absolutely is only going to help everybody who surrounds me and who I'm helping tap into whatever it is that, the present moment of what they have to do. So yeah, my practice is for me, and by extension, everybody I come into contact with. Yeah.
Beautiful. That is really beautiful. And, I wanted to make sure to acknowledge this too, because that example that you gave of the water bowl was gorgeous. But it's interesting because it also mirrors that thing of filling up, being very intentional with our own energy and what we are full of or what we are directing our mind towards, but then also that beauty of emptying out, whether being the empty vessel through our practice or just like allowing stuff to move and release and transform. So I love that water bowl practice that you shared. But I wanted to back up because you mentioned just a little blip on the screen about how your daughter and having her was life-changing. So I wanted to back up to that because I think a lot of us have pivotal moments in our lives, right? I mean, we have several, in fact. But when you knew that you were going to become a mom, how did that impact who you are now becoming?
When I found out that I was pregnant, which was unplanned, but also like, yes, I had one. I mean, I knew when it happened. Let me just put it that way. Um, um, you know, it was obviously meant to be. She was obviously meant to be. And it was a big wake up call of like all of a sudden I I felt, and I could have been also her energy, knowing her now. Knowing her now, I think she already had an influence, like pretty much right away, of like, um, I had been, as I've shared my childhood, I had to go with the flow. I was able to go with the flow and do what everybody else wanted and needed and go back and forth between parents and blah, blah, blah. I did not have as much experience going, what do I want? What is it that I want? I could do what everybody else wanted and make a beautiful life from that within that and be kind of passive a little bit and kind of, yes, I was good at school, so I went to graduate school because I was good at school, and then I like to read, and so I did literature and you know, but what did I what did I really want? I wasn't sure. I wasn't really sure. There was like what did that mean? And when I got pregnant, all of a sudden I had this feeling that where I was not where I was meant to be. Uh-oh. And that was a very strong feeling. And I felt this sense of somebody moving my furniture around was how it came to me when Zoe was in there. And I was like, okay, this is like major change is needed. I don't know why yet, but I need to go and see why. I couldn't explain it exactly, except I was actually looking for peace and a place to be in peace with myself and for my daughter. I didn't know she would be a daughter or whatever this being was.
Yes.
Whatever this being was, I wanted them to know me in peace, in my peace, and that I was not in my peace, and that it wasn't, or that I wasn't doing what I was meant to be doing, or etc. And so I trusted that. And at the same time as that was happening and life was growing inside me, I had a very dear family member who had Lou Gehrig's disease and he was my age exactly, and he was deteriorating, and with such humor and grace, uh, and I remember even just talking to him about my feelings of what was coming up for me, and he just was laughing, and he was just there, an example saying, you got to do what you got to follow your curiosity. If it's not really hurt, you got to follow that. You got to follow that. We didn't talk specifically about that, but there was these huge forces going on of life and death, And that's always a wake up call, right? I mean, it can be for people when that happens. And I was like, okay, a shift is needed, and I'm going to go and see what that's going to look like. So at the time I was married, and I to her father, and I, as gracefully as I could, um, left the marriage to get an apartment and see what this guidance that was coming to me was what was supposed to be, that I wanted to show my daughter exactly who I was in my full authority, and that I would still be friends and maintain somehow the bridge, and not make her repeat what I had undergone, and make her, I was going to be her integrating guide, and not change her life. She was 3 at the time that I shifted. And so I was, just dedicated to keeping her stability and keeping her in touch and in tune with all the family on both sides, and taking her to the same schools. I mean, I got to live a real childhood experience of like people going to the same school. Like I was like, I just made sure she stayed in the same school. And and of course, here's my daughter, her own self, her own being, not me. She's like, but I want to be homeschooled. Why do I have to go to school? Just homeschool me. I'm like, no, 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 no. You, I am, you and you're too fire. You're too fire. She's like, she and my mom are fire signs. I'm earth and water, and those ladies can run circles around me. So I was like, no, no, you guys, we're gonna do this thing, but we're also, you get to see also how this life is more similar to how I grew up, actually, in terms of just like I dedicated myself to dance and performing and teaching, and building my life around my peaceful practices for my well-being, for my energetic well-being. And of course that served her, I think in hindsight, of course, is 2020. But and I always had a sense even that she would be her own incredible force and energy, and that and that we are, now we work together. And even though all growing up, I was prepared, I was like, everybody is their own person, and I must be prepared for, she will go her own way. Well, she has gone her own way. She's an incredible circus artist, and a force of nature. She's pretty much running our family studio. But we work together as a mother and daughter team who are more like, it's a harmonious little partnership that we have. And with my partner, Sasha, that we have this beautiful circus school that we created, and that is just sharing our family skills, and safely and harmoniously with people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, my daughter is absolutely, I think she was a big wake-up call. And I don't know if she hadn't come, whether I would have, because I could always just be happy in a little corner of somebody else's life. I was really good at that. But it's not so easy to take ownership of your own path and follow intuitions that you don't know how to explain to yourself or anybody else, but that somehow you have to do these things, and that you follow that curiosity, and then it builds, and you realize that suddenly you're in a beautiful life that you made, that you helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are two things that I have to ask you because of what you just shared so beautifully. And it's, well, we'll see. I think two more, Melinda. Bear with me. But with your daughter, I'm very curious to know, like, if you know, just thinking about it now, how has just overall being a mother and still in that expression, how has that been a part of this spiritual practice for you? And what has that experience, this relationship with your daughter, even mirrored to you about relationship with self, or again, what this work is about, so to speak?
It's interesting. I'm so, I just, I just love my daughter, in her fierce and powerful being so much. I think this work has just bolstered my understanding of like allowing everybody to be a full expression of who they are, in and not to worry about allowing them to be that. Like, my daughter and I have very different energetic, I don't know, I say energy a lot, but she is fiery. She is an Aries, in the sense of like she can instigate and create, and has boundless energy, and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and can manifest like just amazing, just like that. Just like she'll have an idea in the morning and she will have written a book with hyperlinked videos by the night. That's her. She is, just that. And I've always seen her, and I named her Zoe Isadora. This came, I only had a girl's name picked out, or what uh I could, and Zoe means life in Greek, and Isadora is gift of Isis and of light. And I've always seen her as a guide and a gift to me, always. And never thought that I would know everything about what we should do, but also was able, I understand how to be a parent and take, be responsible, and, actually, know better about some things. But at this point, my kid is now a woman. She's 21. And I learned a long time ago to accept, that actually her way is really a fantastic way. And I've learned a lot from watching her manifest right and left, and make magic, and have that energy and drive. And so it makes for a beautiful partnership, in that sense, especially as it's something we both consciously choose. And of course, we talk about, there's nothing that we can't talk about and or work through, or there's, as one of my mantras is, there are no problems, there is only love. We can, and when tricky things come up, like she can be like, ooh, like get really sort of like mad at her dad, for example. I'll just use an example. There have been times in her teen years where there was like, whoo, she didn't want to talk to him for like months and months. And she can just like, and I would be like, talking to them both, being like, it's going to be okay. This will pass, but the we will all come, you will come together again, don't worry. And I don't know why I'm bringing that example up, but it's just an example of like, there's the practice. I would go and, in times that were troubling, I would say, I would be like, okay, I trust that the universe is going to help bring peaceful resolution to this energy here, and that it is not worth, when energy is like this between two people and you're in the middle, you can't get in there and do this and and get all vibe crazy with them. Like that's not going to serve anything. So, what can you control anyway? And I've gotten a really good sense of what I can control, what I can't control, what should be controlled, what shouldn't be controlled. And that's the work actually a lot of times is like, wait a minute, what am I supposed to control here or not control? As a parent, that's a huge piece and then just not, I'm just lucky because I don't have people breathing down my neck going, well, you're supposed to do this as a mother. My mother is like, she raised me to do whatever I wanted in a way and just claim it, like claim it. We've talked about claiming claim. People get to do what they want to do. If you're not hurting other
Right.
people get to do and try what they want to do. It's not about you. You can't take this stuff personally. It's what they got to try. And you get to do be in your peace and observe and assist when it's necessary or but like yeah, my daughter is like a he I think my practice, I like to think too that yeah, she supports my practice. She is not one to sit down. She's like every time when we teach, I'm like, remind them to breathe. She's like, I'm not reminding to breathe. That's your thing. You remind them to breathe. And so she doesn't necessarily, she's not sitting up here on the mat with me, breathing and she's tuning in, but she's definitely tuned in her own way.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have to do my way. She's doing her thing. But yeah, I think just being able to coexist with anybody with a sense of humor and love and letting them be and letting them be how they are. Um, and as long, is if you can stay in your peace, that's what matters the most.
I think that's a powerful lesson for all of us through any type of relationship, romantic, friendships, mother daughter, all across the board, every kind of relationship. That's really beautiful. And so I have to ask you one more thing, Melinda, before you go, and it'll be our wrap up since we've gone a little bit over. I know that you have a Moody Street Circus, and I would love for you to share with everyone how they can work with you, because you have your studio in person where people can come learn dance, and also the aerial work that you do. Again, go in the show description, click on the links and see what she does. It's phenomenal. But you also offer some classes online. So even if people aren't local to you, they can still learn from you. But I know that through a lot of your work, even your study and getting your PhD in French literature, a lot of your work in your life, it sounds like, has been very focused on women empowerment and people really just owning who they are. I mean, you've said that several times throughout this conversation. So I wanted to ask you about that, why that is so important to you in expression, and then what it is that people will get access to in working with you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for everybody to have a space in which it's encouraged to, whether it be dance or whatever, or meditation or whatever it is that you're doing, that you're claiming it, and that you are showing up in your full presence for it. And when I'm teaching dance, that I'm guiding people into kind of a reclaiming of their bodies in ways that perhaps they are not used to, or haven't been able to express. And so very slowly I take people through, really just calling themselves, energetically into their body to feel what's going on, feel their breath, feel their connection to earth, ground, lengthen and lift, and then sort of in terms of the belly dance movements are extremely revealing about what you're holding in your body, what you might, want to, what it helps your, I call them the three bowls flow, your pelvic basin. And belly dance is all about that undulating, spiraling, circling flow. And so, yeah, I guide people into getting their bowls spiraling together and separately so that they have a sense of control, even in the good way of control over their body. They have authority over their body. They can manage their circles and spirals, and wherever they might be. It's a process, like anything, like learning a language, like learning anything. It's a process, and you have to be patient, and your muscles maybe have never done this or that, and they have to learn new pathways. And so I do a lot of, like noticing also how you interact with what's around you. We're not just, I use a lot of imagery to help people express with their arms and hands, which maybe feels uncomfortable to some people. Maybe they're not used to that. And making beautiful, belly dance movements and shapes. And a lot of it is about also, you do have to kind of leave a certain part of yourself, that part that is like embarrassed or ashamed of their body, or, you come as you are, you move as a goddess. And that sounds trite but you want to feel that, you want to try to tap into that feeling through dance, and just kind of start to consider what stories that you're telling through your movements in dance and in your life. And maybe you can start to shift, and express some in new ways. So in terms of the dance online, I do guide my it's very amenable to like people who haven't even taken belly dance before. It's just, I take people very slowly through these aspects of the dance. And then there is always a part with, when everybody's shimmying, and there's always a feeling like people feel like they're hiccuping, or there's something gets stuck and they can't move, and you just have to relax and flow through those times. And and so it's something it's a beautiful art form to feel empowered in your own body. And then, of course, on the circus art side, that's another empowerment. That literally is, in order to safely do shapes in the air and make transitions beautiful and strong, you do have to strengthen your body in safe ways. So that's sort of another modality that we do in our in-studio aerial training. But again, we do so with a sense of the whole, not just it's from how we got to approach and touch the silk or the whatever apparatus, to how are we breathing in the shapes, how are we holding them, what are we doing at home to support our strength building. That's on the circus side. So no matter what the teaching that we're doing, it's just helping people with what it is that they want to achieve, and having fun along the way, and doing the work along the way, to support their goal. And sometimes people don't know, when they come into belly dance, what it is that they're looking for. They have one idea, and then it shifts and changes, and suddenly their life change. In a way, it's like energy work I see now. I've had a lot of
Yeah.
people who come and they're on the verge of change, or they've just changed, or they've just gone through a divorce, or they're about to get married, or all kinds of things. And it's like, it's somehow it's a portal to a shift in its own way. So it's a beautiful thing to explore.
That is so beautiful, Melinda. And I know, again, I really recommend everyone go on the show description, check out your work, but it's been just beautiful. And I have 1,000 more questions for you. We just don't have the time, but I love hearing so much about your story, learning a lot about you. But also, again, I hope that everyone listening does recognize the beauty woven throughout your story and the practice itself always being present, because I think that's very true for a lot of us in our lives. We just kind of only identify our practice or our work, so to speak, with very specific things and under very specific titles and categories. But all of the work that we do, whether it's Reiki, meditation, yoga, breath work, whatever you're doing, it's all about this re-identification of self, relationship building with self, but how it all really does express through your life. And I love what you said about the stories that you tell through dance and through life. Like, God, that's so beautiful. And just for anyone, if you do reach out to Melinda or have a chance to work with her, you'll find that she's so just absolutely beautiful, beautiful spirit, so poetic, and a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So I thank you, my love, for being a part of my journey. Genuinely, I'm so thankful that you're in the Alchemy Circle, that our paths have crossed. You know, I absolutely adore you. And I thank you with my entire heart for coming to share today.
Yolanda, I love you so much. My heart is just beaming right now. And this has been a gift to be like in your field in all these different ways. I am so grateful to you for all the manifesting you're doing. I can't wait for your Oracle card deck to come out, your card deck. When I'm dying to use that as my tool. I'm dying. But yeah, on behalf of all of us in the Alchemy Circle, I mean, we have just shifted and enormously. We are so much more at peace, so much more glorious feeling inside, so much more just stable in our beingness. I think all of us are, and so I'm just honored and thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, my love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you to pieces. And can you please, even though I'll have it all down in the show description, could you let us know what is the best website to check out your work, to work with you, and also social media? Where can we find you?
Yes, moodystreetcircus.com. There is a street called Moody Street. It's not about being moody. I know I thought it was funny though, but it's on Moody Street. So Moody, street is spelled out. moodystreetcircus.com is our studio website, and all the email links there come into us, information about our classes and online and performances even for the times that we're able to do them in the future. We do circus shows and stuff like that. Also on Instagram, same thing, Moody Street Circus. And then my belly dance identity is under the name Melina. And that's my Greek name from childhood. And so Melina Belly Dancer is the Instagram handle. And we're also on Facebook and the same names. Moody Street Circus and Melina of Daughters of Rhea on Facebook.
Beautiful. Daughters of Rhea. So I will make sure to put all of the links down in the show description. Everyone go ahead, go down, click on all the links, get more familiar with Melinda. And thank you, my love. I'll see you very soon.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Okay, beautiful alchemist, how did you enjoy that conversation? What did you learn through that conversation with Melinda? I thought it was fascinating to hear what it was like for her growing up in the 70s and having such creative, interesting parents. I mean, if you listen to the show, I'm sure you've gotten a feel for how much I love just hearing everyone's stories. I mean, we learn so much through each other's experiences. And I think it was beautiful the way that she was able to identify just so many powerful tools through the course of her life that are exact mirrors of different practices that we use within the system of Reiki and even meditation. So don't forget, if you want to learn more about Melinda and her work, be sure to visit moodystreetcircus.com. You're going to spell street out, Moody Street, STREET, circus.com. You can also find her on social media. Again, those links are down in the show description. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Melinda, for coming to share again today. I thank you with my whole heart for being a member of the Alchemy Circle and sharing your insights with us there and contributing to this collaborative space of healing for us all. And for everyone tuning in, I thank you for your presence. I hope that you enjoyed the first conversation of this series, and remember to always journey in love.